Welcome to the Flying Octopus Podcast, offering a new perspective on Red Wings hockey, as well as all the important news from around the NHL. And now, here are your hosts, Tony Wolak, Devin Little, and Evan Sabrin.
Welcome to episode 18 of the Flying Octopus Podcast, the Kirk Maltby episode. Frankly, we weren't sure if we were going to be recording tonight. For those who don't know, our producer, Evan, lives out in Los Angeles, and there are wildfires, going through the Los Angeles area, Pacific Palisades. Really unfortunate what's going on, and our heart goes out to everyone who lives in the area, who's impacted by the wildfires, who's lost property, friends, family in the wildfire, and hopefully we'll see that come to an end soon. But until then, again, our hearts go out to everyone in the Los Angeles area who's impacted by the wildfires. And Evan, glad to see you're here with us tonight.
It's been madness out here, guys, just madness, and it's kind of a scary situation. I'm fortunate enough not to be in the danger zone, but most of Los Angeles is covered in clouds and a cloud of smoke and ash, and it's pretty scary. We've had some friends lose some houses, and not the best at times, but as you said, Tony, our thoughts and prayers are going out to people who have suffered from this awful tragedy at the moment. We're here today, guys, to help you maybe give a little relief and talk some Red Wings hockey. This is episode 18, as Tony said, and just want to remind you really quick where you can find us on YouTube. We're on Twitter, we're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, and we're also on Blue Sky. Guys, what a week, man. Red Wings, 5 wins in a row, and we're looking at a team that is only 2 points out of a playoff spot currently, whereas the doom and gloom of a couple weeks ago, we were talking about lottery picks. So a little more excitement this week in a downtime out here. But guys, hit it off. What did you guys see in this 5-game winning streak? It's a totally different team from what I'm looking at.
So the one thing that's been great about this 5-game winning streak is that the Red Wings top players have been at the forefront of Detroit's success. And so, I'm talking about Dylan Larkin, I'm talking about Raymond, Patrick Kane, Alex DeBrincat, Moritz Seider. All those players are averaging a point per game or better over those 5 games, or actually over the 6 games since Todd McClellan took over. And in that span, Larkin and Raymond are tied for 5th in NHL scoring. So especially for a player like Larkin, who was a little snake bitten for a while there, it's great to see him find a scoring touch again. 5 goals in 6 games. That's pretty good for Detroit's captain. But overall, it is really great to see the top players, take charge and lead this team. Our colleague over at the Hockey Writers, Mark Scheig, he had the opportunity to chat with Alex DeBrincat while he was in Columbus for the game last week. And DeBrincat said the energy in the room is just so much better, that there's a lot more positivity, and the team's just feeding off of it. So it's clear on the ice. They're back to playing their game, back to playing like Red Wings hockey that we saw down the stretch last season. And the on-ice product matches their talent, and they're no longer just kind of in a rut. So overall, the top players leading is exactly what you want to see this time of year.
Yeah, and I think the big thing for me too is they're playing with the puck. They're playing possession hockey. They have yet to be outshot since Todd McClellan took over, or at least during this winning streak. Tied in shots against Ottawa the other night, but still not outshot. That to me was one of the more frustrating things to watch. In the last month or so of the Derek Lalonde era, was they're getting outshot, they're getting outworked, out hustled, out everythinged, basically. Not possessing the puck. It was ugly hockey, and they're playing effing hockey now. And a big thing to me that kind of indicates, how well a team is doing and how well they're, it determines that they're playing with the puck is their shot totals, the fact that they have the ability to get shots off. So that's a big indicator to me that they're playing with the puck. And obviously, like you mentioned there, Tony, not only are they playing with the puck and getting these shots off, the shots are going in. And that's probably the biggest thing, right? And also, for what it's worth too, I I feel like they're playing with more structure too. Just all in all, it's hard to really pinpoint one specific thing and go, man, this is so much better. It's a lot of it. It's just overall, I think, better. Penalty kill doesn't look absolutely atrocious, and they're playing with the puck. It's a better brand of hockey. And this winning streak, I think, is kind of the proof of it.
I think in a lot of ways, you can call it the new head coaching bump. You can call it whatever you want. Intangibly speaking, it seems like just the weight that has been lifted from the players' shoulders in terms of everything from their underperformance individually to the team play. There was so much pressure on them to deliver in a way that felt like they were just running into a brick wall over and over again. They were trying the same things over and over again. And although we haven't seen massive changes to the system of play other than getting the shots up, they're playing to their potential. And I just feel like they've been freed up there to get out there and create. We joked about the loose but honest thing last week. I really do feel that there's a looseness to the team that it's refreshing. The freedom to create, the freedom to just go out there and play. That doesn't mean, again, as McClellan himself has said, it doesn't mean that we're not talking about players that aren't playing a system. It doesn't mean that they're not responsible for their mistakes, but we're talking about guys who are, for lack of a better term, they're just out there. They're out there playing like kids, even though they're professional athletes getting paid millions of dollars to play error-free hockey. They're finally, they've been freed up. I guess the guy that impresses me the most really is Moritz Seider. I know that Larkin is on a tear. Patrick Kane is dazzling and dangling and deking the way he used to be, and the way he used to be in this tenure with the Wings. Let's go with that. Let's not assume that he's going to be the Showtime of old. He's just Showtime 2.0. But when Seider is carrying that defensive load and has to be the shutdown guy, has to be the Mr. Everything on defense, and he's still putting up those assists, it's really remarkable to me.
I mean, the sample size now I think is decent enough to say, the Red Wings have beaten some good teams now in this 5-game winning streak. And to me, hindsight is 20/20, but to look back and to see where this team could be if this move had happened earlier, as a lot of people had called for. I mean, should Yzerman have waited this long? But guys, I guess the question, and I'll just go around the horn here, and Tony, I'll start with you. Like, what is the difference? Is it the puck luck? Is it the new voice in the room? Is it better strategy? It's a combination. It could be a combination of things. But like, what's different? Because this is night and day. This is Jekyll and Hyde, the two teams that we're seeing play.
I think it's a combination of things, but I agree with what George was saying. It's the energy, it's the positivity, it's just the team feeling like the weight's off their shoulders and they can play a little bit more free hockey. I don't know if the puck luck's any different. That's something that just kind of ebbs and flows, but and the strategy hasn't changed too much, but they're just playing hockey, and it's
effing hockey.
And yeah. It's just a freer style of game, and they're confident with the puck, and I think that's probably what it comes down to, is they're playing with confidence again.
Last week we had that real world example about how you want to perform better for a boss that you respect more or like how they do things. So I'm going to bring in another real world kind of example. When you're feeling good, the vibes are good, whatever, you're just in a really good mood, whatever. Bad things don't bother you as much. And good things tend to happen more. You feel better, you're more productive, you're more able to accomplish things. And when you feel bad, doing good things feels like a task. And when bad things happen, it's overwhelming. It's like, oh my God, another thing, you know? And I think that that's true, you know, on the ice rink as well. I think we've seen that, right in front of us this season. When the Red Wings weren't feeling good about themselves a month ago, and they looked like it, and now, for one reason or another, they very clearly feel a lot better. Like you mentioned, Tony, DeBrincat said the vibes are completely different in the locker room, and you can see it. I think that generally, when good things happen, and when you're feeling bad things happen. There's probably some psychology we could dive into there, but this is not a psychology podcast, so we won't do it. But I think I think that's really just what it comes down to. The players believe, and they're getting the results that lead them to believe more. And it's kind of like a fountain that kind of pours into itself. Until they encounter their first real obstacle and bad thing, for lack of better words, this is going to continue. Ride it while they can, because, like I just said, it's not going to last forever.
Ride the lightning, right, man? That's it. Ride the lightning, because the intangibles are there, but the tangibles are there too, because McClellan was talking. We're recording this on Thursday, and McClellan was talking today about the absolute importance of shot volume, making sure that you're shooting the forecheck, that you're shooting to get rebounds, you're shooting to get scoring chances, that there's meaning to what you're doing. It's not just for fun. I mean, number one, you're having fun, which is fantastic because it lifts the boulder off your chest. And I really think that under the late days of Coach Lalonde, everybody was just playing with a boulder on their chest. They collectively and individually, they were trying so very hard to lift that boulder off their own chests and to try and lift the team boulder. But eventually you get paralyzed by your indecision. You get paralyzed by your doubts. You struggle to act decisively, and I think that lack of decisiveness versus this sort of free-flowing hockey. I mean, we know that they're not going to win every frickin' game. We know that they're next week on the road they're going to Florida, where they never win. They're going to Tampa Bay, which is going to be a challenge. Then there's that mini little the mini trip to I believe it's Dallas. I could be wrong. No, it's Dallas, and then Philly again, where they didn't do so well. And not everything is going to go smoothly, but you get a feeling that there's a resiliency to this team, and that is encouraging for when the quote unquote honeymoon phase is over, and when, as Coach McClellan put it, the work phase, begins in earnest.
One thing I do want to note, though, is that, I mean, we all love the positive vibes and the winning streak and everything. The Red Wings still need to improve their 5-on-5 offense. Defense is better, penalty kills better, but they've also been buoyed by their power play to an extent. They're up over 52% for converting with McClellan as their coach. So, eventually that's going to, calm down a little bit. But 5-on-5 in terms of goals for, scoring chances for, high danger chances, they're still in the bottom half of the league. And ideally, you want to see that kind of creep up a little bit more as time goes on, but that's something to kind of monitor for the Red Wings, is whether or not they can be a more sustainable team at 5-on-5, because they're better in some regards, but there's still work to be done.
Agreed. I think overall that my apologies for cutting in, but I this is definitely a team in progress, and that's where I get to sort of that point where I think that this is more about the salvage job and seeing what can be improved upon this season, as opposed to focusing only on getting into a playoff spot or the hunt for a playoff spot. For me, it's so important that they rebuild from the inside out, and we can talk about the outside in shortly, but that the level of play at each and every the structure will take care of itself if you take enough pride in what you're doing.
I want to shift gears here a little bit here. George, a couple weeks ago, after the change happened with McClellan, you mentioned that this was step one, that might be a bigger picture or something better coming soon, probably and perhaps in the form of a trade. And there's been a lot of rumors, speculation over pretty much the last month of a deal between the Sabres and the Red Wings. We saw Jason Karmanos, the assistant GM for Buffalo, at the LCA, looking at players. A lot of speculation, and Elliot Friedman came out, said this week that the player that they believe they're looking at is Dylan Cozens. And I'm curious what you guys think about a move for Dylan Cozens. In a way, it intrigues me, but in a way, it would have to be a deal where we're not sacrificing some of these top prospects. I think what Yzerman has built right now, and it's hard to keep preaching patience, but what we have in the system coming that will be here in the next couple of years is there's a lot of guys that I'm not so thrilled about giving up. So I'm curious what you guys think about Dylan Cozens and a move between the Red Wings and the Sabres. Tony, I'll start with you.
At first I was intrigued by the possibility of bringing in Dylan Cozens, but I was chatting with a former colleague of ours, a well-respected Sabres analyst, Chad DeMenesis, of Expected Buffalo, and I was just kind of curious, why are they looking to possibly trade Dylan Cozens? Like, what's going on? What's the deal there? And the picture he painted was kind of that he kind of plateaued, and mind you, this was the player who was selected immediately after Moritz Seider in the 2019 draft. Not sure if he's a center or a wing at this point. He had a 30-goal season a couple of years ago, but kind of tailed off since then. 20 points in 41 games at the time of this recording. Not ideal for a 2C. You're getting that kind of numbers from JT Compher. So it's kind of a mixed bag, right? You have a player who has a great draft pedigree. He's got a 30-goal season under his belt. His age fits in with the cohort that's expected to lead the Red Wings moving forward. But on the other hand, it's is he a second-line center or wing? Or is he more of a third-line player? Is he a great third-line player? Or is he... he's not a driver for a second line. And if he's already making defensive miscues and nothing's really changed between having Don Granato as his coach or Lindy Ruff as his coach, he's still kind of plateauing. How much is he worth? And is that something that the Red Wings want to entertain, right? So you have the recency bias of how he's been lately. That's the player who needs a fresh start. You don't want to buy low. But on the other hand, Buffalo obviously, got him at a very high draft pick. They want to recoup some of that value. They had, they viewed him with having high potential. So how do you evaluate that? How do you value that player in terms of what's happened recently and what could happen, what has happened in the past? It's a very wide range of outcomes. So based on that, on paper, it looks good, but I'm kind of on the fence now. I don't know, Devin, if you're feeling the same way.
I am not feeling the same way because I'm actually firmly in the no category. When the talk started coming out about Detroit and Buffalo talking with each other, to me, I I looked at their defense and I thought that was a really good fit for a potential move. The Sabres have three at high potential. One of them's already well established, but three really, really good left-handed defensemen in Rasmus Dahlin, Owen Power, and Bowen Byram. There's a lot of talk going on right now that they are at least listening to offers on Bowen Byram. And as we all know, because we watch the Red Wings on a regular basis, the Red Wings need help on the blue line. And specifically, they don't really have much on the left side behind Simon Edvinsson. You know, on the right side, you have Seider, and at least you kind of look and you go, all right, Axel Pellikka's coming. He'll, a year or two, he'll slide into that spot. So you have two guys, at least theoretically, that you feel good about. On the left side, there's some ifs and maybes in the system, but nobody else besides Edvinsson that you really get excited about. So I was very confidently thinking they're looking at Bowen Byram, and he's going to be their second left-handed defenseman, basically. And there's kind of been some stuff over the years of certain players that the Sabres like that are in the Red Wings system. And it all just kind of made sense to me. And then, we're here now, and now the player, reportedly is Dylan Cozens. And I think you laid it out perfectly, Tony. I'm a no, because they already have this player, or at least they have several players that are like this player. They don't need another one. In fact, I think as of today, if you are, betting on what Dylan Cozens is going to be, Dylan Cozens is going to be JT Compher. JT Compher is a good player, but depending on what they're talking about, giving away, why don't you just keep OG JT Compher and Andrew Kopp and Marco Kasper and Nate Danielson that all more or less have the same toolkits. I think Danielson and Casper have higher ceilings than Kopp and Compher, but they're the same. They're all in the kind of cut from the same cloth. At some point, find different players. You can't have a roster of 12 of the same guys. That's just not how that works. That's not how you build a winning roster. And I like Cozens as a player. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's a bad player, and the Red Wings should avoid this at all costs. It's just with what they have already, they don't need this player. If they're hell-bent on making a deal with Buffalo, there are other players on their roster that I think they should be taking a closer look at. But I would say that Elliot Friedman knows what he's talking about more often than he does it. So, oh well. I guess to kind of close this out, if I'm going to kind of name some saving graces for Cozens, he has had, as he's developed and whatnot, there's been some talk about some leadership qualities, and I'm always in on guys like that have that intangible trait, and also he's got good size. I think that whether he's a center or a winger, at the end of the day, he has the kind of size that you can't teach that should make him difficult to play in, whether he's a third line matchup guy or a top six tough to play against guy. Either way, he's got the build for it. I guess my hesitation is that I don't know that he's going to be a top six guy. And if the Red Wings are going to go out of their way to bring a player in, especially in the forward group, it should be somebody who you feel pretty good about being a difference maker moving forward.
Now we're going to go back in time here just for a little bit to when I was downstairs at the Brown Courthouse in Garden City, and my next door neighbor friends and I found my dad's stack of Playboys and penthouses.
Oh boy.
So we were about 9 years old at the time, and you learn so much from the Playboys and the penthouses. But most importantly, you learn the vital statistics. So we're going to rattle them off. Cozens is 23. He's 6'3", 195 pounds. I believe he's a Libra who likes long walks on the beach. But in all seriousness, he's in the second year of a 7-year contract with a $7.1 million salary cap hit. And when he had his fantastic season when he put up 31 goals and 68 points, the Sabres were like, okay, we're going to pay him. And they paid him. And he's had two pretty mediocre seasons since then. He likes also horseback riding in the rain. But anyway, the long story long is that I was just before we were recording, Frank Saravalli and Jason Greger were on the Daily Face-Off podcast, and they were like, "Yeah, what is Cozens really?" And they were saying, "Well, maybe he's a 50 to 60 point guy, but he's not a driver of play." And as much as I'm with Devin in the leadership qualities, I want a center to be driving play, and we hear very few bubbles from the nuclear submarine, as I call it, that is the Red Wings front office. It runs silent, it runs deep, and it tends not to reveal its secrets. But trading that for Cozens would require some roster surgery. It would require some salary going back the other way. And if you're going to give up young assets for a young player, and that the Sabres are going to want draft picks and young players, and then you have to get salary going their way as well. That's a pretty complicated situation for a young man who some believe has already plateaued. So that's my take on it anyway.
And I agree with both of you. And I started thinking about what would it take to acquire a guy like Dylan Cozens. And I start looking at all of the prospects, and I had to write them down because there's so goddamn many that I can't remember. But I'm not comfortable with giving up an Axel Sandin Pellikka, a Michael Brentz-Nygaard, even Casper, Carter Mazer. I think we already have a Cozens and Danielson potentially, a Buchelnikov, a Kosa, and Augustine. When you think about that core, and then you think about the guys that are still with the team now, Evans and Seider, Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, I see a really good team here in the future, and I don't think Yzerman really wants to play around and mess with that. Cozens is, like you said, George, $7.1 million. They're going to have to figure out a lot of the maneuvering there with the salary cap, but it's intriguing, but it's not somewhere. I don't think it's a move that's necessary. I don't think it's going to really change things that much for the future if a guy like him is brought in, because I think you already have that. You have 3 or 4 potential guys who could fill in that second line spot. That to me, Danielson has a higher ceiling for me than Dylan Cozens. I don't know if you guys agree with that. I love watching Marco Kasper, and that's going to be our segue into the next topic. But I don't see it. I don't see that move coming. I just don't.
Maybe you save the trade chips for another player, maybe someone in Vancouver who would fit in great with the Red Wings.
Which one? Which one?
Not the JT Miller one, the other one.
Are you a Pettersson fan or a Miller fan?
Now that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
That's a completely different conversation for another show. But I do want to shift gears here again and talk about Marco Kasper like we just did. And it's funny. I actually like watching McClellan kind of these chess pieces he's playing with Veleno playing on the top line and now Casper getting an opportunity. I also wonder, hopefully that's not a showcase opportunity with Marco Kasper playing on the top line, seeing as he's going to go against some weaker teams in the next coming weeks. But what do you guys like this Casper move up to the top line? I'm intrigued by it. I think there's a lot more to unlock with him, and to see him get to play with better skill players is very it's exciting for me.
Kind of similar to Veleno in that, like, he's a talented player offensively, high IQ player, but he can play with that tenacity. He's not a power forward like a Tom Wilson type or anything like that, but like having him be the first man in on the forecheck, like Veleno was, it's sort of the same flavor, but I guess Casper has a little bit of a higher offensive upside. So yeah, might as well give him quality minutes on a nightly basis with Larkin and Raymond and playing against some of the top competition from the opponents, but can't hurt his development. I think it's great for him to be able to play those minutes and possibly boost the scoring there.
I think it's funny too, because I mentioned that Veleno was in the Tyler Bertuzzi role. I think that Marco Kasper is a better fit for that than Joe Veleno is. Kasper's just a little bit more scrappy,
Better
willing
skater.
to frustrate.
Much better skater.
Yeah, absolutely. He's willing to play that irritating game that gets under the opponent's skin, and that was something that Tyler Bertuzzi took great pleasure in as well. And also, I think the bigger takeaway I have from this is McClellan, as much as he has kind of said that he's still, forming opinions and figuring things out, and I believe him, don't get me wrong, the middle six is pretty much settled in. Like it's been what it's been for a while now, and pretty much the only main tinker he's had among the forward group is switching Veleno and Casper. It's interesting that those are the guys he's kind of seen what he has. Maybe who's the better fit for 4C, who's the better fit on that line with Larkin and Raymond. I mean, they both deserve a look there. I liked what I saw from Veleno. I like that Casper's getting this opportunity too. I think that if you have a player like Casper in the lineup, it does. I don't see the value in having him on the fourth line, especially with how the fourth line is constructed right now. You just don't really give him a chance to really shine, I don't think. Whereas on the top line with Larkin and Raymond, the parts of his game that made him go 8th overall really come to the surface, whereas they don't on the fourth line. I'm interested to see what comes of this, because I think that this is kind of where this is more or less the type of role I think you want Casper to play for the rest of his career. Maybe not on the wing. I think they still would prefer him to be a center, but it's not the end of the world if he's a winger. I think he could carve out a nice career for himself on the wing, especially if he's going to be that disruptor, first guy under the forecheck, that type of player. And I think that, yeah, this is the new coach really getting a look at the youngest guy on the team, really, right? Seeing what the kid's made of, seeing what he can do in high pressure situation in a role where he has to produce. Obviously, the actual raw production hasn't come yet, but I think it will, because he's playing with arguably the best forwards on the team, and he's hanging in there with them. He's not being carried by much contributing, and I think that as long as you continue to contribute, the goals will come, the points will come, and I think that is more so the case for a player like Casper than I do for Veleno, and maybe it's just because we have a bit more faith in Casper's offensive potential than Veleno's.
And what better team to test it out against the Blackhawks? I mean,
right?
Why not?
For me, he's that Austrian worker bee. He loves to work hard. He loves to be responsible. He loves to bust his ass working to drive play. If we're going to talk about somebody who drives play, he can be that third guy on the line that'll get in on the forecheck, or will go to the front of the net and annoy people just because he can. He's not big or by any stretch of the imagination, and at least in today's NHL, but he's pesky. He's a pesky guy, and I think that I don't want to offend anybody here, but I think that to me, number one, I see more offense when he's freed up on the wing for the present moment, and number two, I sort of see him almost like a Valtteri Filppula player, in that back in the day when Phil was in his prime, and he was sort of the good number two center that could play the two-way game. That was really what I saw out of what I see out of Casper, except with an edge. Filppula was so polite it was disturbing at times, and I think that Casper is going to be an impolite Austrian, but definitely I see him as somebody who can possibly become that number two center if we aren't talking about Danielson over the next couple of years. So that's my take on him anyway.
Yeah, aren't talking about Danielson or Dylan Cozens for that matter. because a lot of the speculation is that Casper could be part of the trade that brings back Dylan Cozens. I don't know if I'd be a fan of that. I think we're still a little too early in Casper's NHL journey to make the assessment that he's tradable, but you'll see what happens there. But kind of tying it all together, back to Elliot Friedman's original article or column about the Red Wings being interested in Cozens. He also mentioned in that same piece that during the Toronto game, the first game with McClellan behind the bench, the Red Wings were down 5-0 after 2 periods, and McClellan in his first game came into the locker room and challenged the team and to show some resilience. And Friedman mentioned that was the specific word there, resilience. It's encouraging because that's what happened. They showed resilience in the third period. I mean, again, if you're down 5, if you're up 5-0, you're not showing that much effort to make it 6 or 7 or 8. But the Red Wings did score 2. They won the period, and they've won every game since. So the word resilience, it was used, but I think more importantly, it's been shown on the ice. And actions speak louder than words.
Seeing that and reading that in the article made me feel real good. Like you said, it's showing up on the ice, and good to know that the coach, I guess, re-taught them what it means to be resilient, because they sure were not before he got there.
That's a lot of, I'm sorry, that's a lot of what we see in the Red Wings play lately is reteaching. It's not like they were this big ball of muck before McClellan took over. It's not like they didn't have positive qualities, but it's almost as if they've needed a re-education to reintroduce certain topics, to introduce certain new topics. It's the salvage job makes it sound like he's a plumber, and I don't want to make an NHL coach sound like a plumber, but there's definitely a sense that it's a re-education, that it's a renovation job, and that's absolutely essential to me.
Yeah, it's these past couple of weeks have been a lot more fun, as we've talked, and we're 18 episodes in, but I would say 16 of those episodes were not really fun for any of us to come up with any ideas of it felt like we were just a broken record, Devin, that we used to say like last year. But it's once again, it's exciting to turn on the TV again and be excited for these games, because 2 weeks ago I'm talking to friends at work and I'm like, yeah, James Hagen's, man, the draft's out here in LA this year. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling it, yeah. And now I'm like, you know what, screw Hagen's, this team's playing well. So it's fun again. So anyway, guys, we got to wrap it up here. Red Wings Friday at home versus the Hawks. Sunday at home versus the Kraken. Tuesday home versus San Jose. On Thursday, they will be in Florida playing the Panthers, and we'll be back with you again on Friday. So, guys, real quick, just want to remind everyone where to find us: YouTube, Twitter, Blue Sky, iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm excited for this week, guys. These are some very winnable games, and I'm excited to see how this team performs and responds. And man, I always love playing the Blackhawks, especially when they're down. Okay, so with that, guys, this is episode 18 of the Flying Octopus Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Flying Octopus Podcast. Follow us on YouTube at the Flying Octopus Channel and Twitter at Flying Octopod.